Last lecture we all had discussed about the chemical theory, and in that we have learned about the Miller and Urey experiment. Those who were absent for this particular lecture will watch the video. Now today we will be talking about Oparin and Haldane theory. Oparin and Haldane, these are the name of two scientists. They have given their theory. Now remember, Miller and Urey have presented his idea in experimentally, but the base was theory. This Oparin and Haldane, they have not given any such experimentation. It was just their thoughts and their theory. And need to remember is that they have discussed this particular theory in the year 1922, but this particular theory was taken as a base by the Miller and Urey in the year 1953, and they have presented it into the way of experiment. So where they have presented, so this Oparin and Haldane theory, this theory was presented by both scientists independently. It is not like that they were working together and they have shared their theory. So it is not like that. Alexander Oparin in the year 1920s, actually 22 exactly, and he was presenting his paper in the conference of Botanical Society of Moscow, and J.B.S. Haldane, he was English biologist, and this Oparin was the Russian biologist. So he was also talking about the similar thoughts. He was having similar ideas. So independently, they gave the uh, synopsis of theory of origin of life, which was published as article in the journal Rationalist Annual. This is important to remember if, for the MCQ purpose, that Haldane's theory was published in Rationalist Annual Journal. Now, accordingly, we will talk about their combined view. What was the theory? As I told you earlier, that both were having the same ideas. So, according to their combined view, Oparin and Haldane, they said that life evolved occurs during the period when atmosphere of Earth was reducing type. Now, last lecture when we were talking about Miller and Urey experiment, we all have seen that the medium or the reactant was taken by him was the same, that is the hydrogen, water, then ammonia, methane, carbon dioxide. So they also postulate the same thing, that in atmosphere was the reducing type, and in the atmosphere hydrogen, water, then ammonia, methane, carbon dioxide was present, but there was no free oxygen. So because ozone was not there, so ultraviolet ray. Now what is the function of the ozone? That ozone is preventing ultraviolet rays directly come on the earth. So ultraviolet rays from the sunlight was directly reaching to the surface of the oceanic water. Now this ultraviolet rays was depicted by the Miller and Urey. They have used the 75,000 volt electrical spark. Now, what is happening? This high energy ultraviolet rays, this was doing the chemical synthesis of the organic molecules, right? So the organic compound might have remained stable in the oceanic water. Why it has remained stable? Because there was no oxygen. We know that oxygen is oxidizing each and every compound and mixing up. So the whatever compounds were formed, that was remain into the oxygen. Now gradual accumulation of such organic molecules in the oceanic water was produced. Now what will happen? This particular thing will form the Haldane soup, means whatever thing was formed as Haldane has discovered. So what he said, that this all particular thing, whatever organic compounds are settling down. So all this compound is making settling into the ocean, and he named it as the Haldane soup. Now this Haldane soup will consisted of the monomeric as well as the polymeric organic moieties. Then later on, Oparin also suggested that such organic molecules form assemblies of the lipid bound membrane, and he named that lipid bound membrane as the coacervate that was isolated from being diluted and destroyed. Now see what happens. Haldane said that high ultraviolet rays is coming, high energy rays are coming. So these high energy rays are forming organic molecules, and these organic molecules are being formed. Practically, we have seen by the Miller and Urey experiment into the last lecture. So these organic molecule may dilute into the oceanic water, right? Because the concentration or amount of water is much more higher. So Haddon said that it was remained into the form of colloidal substance only, but Oparin has added that there might be some lipid bound membrane over it, means 4 5 molecules they are getting together, and these 4 5 molecules will have the lipid bound membrane, and we named their lipid bound membrane as the coacervate. Then this coacervate, as they have the lipid bound membrane, they are protected and they are isolated from being diluted and destroyed. Now because of formation of the lipid layer, so this particular thing will have more and more chances. All the inorganic molecules which are settled, which are being made, they have more chances to interact with each other. So definitely there might be having chance to form the life form, like conversion into the DNA and all. So such conservates might have led to the first form of life. They were able to absorb and assimilate the compound from the surrounding, because this lipid layer is preventing the molecule, but this lipid layer is connected with the biological system surrounding it, right? So this lipid layer is absorbing water, is absorbing the energy. So because of that, that might have adjusted in such a way that that might have formed the RNA, that might have formed DNA, and that might have started the photosynthesis and all. So because as this lipid molecule has converted into the light form, so photosynthetic might have started, and because of that, once the likewise so many lipid molecule might have been formed. So all this lipid molecule will it start performing the photosynthesis. So what is going to be happen? Lots of energies will form, right? So all these things will start increasing the oxygen into the environment. So photosynthesis might have arisen as a result of alternative energy source under the circumstance of scarcity of the natural food, because everything was now, see, when we were learning the Miller and Urey experiment, what we have learned that the components or the reactant which were there initially, which was taken in the beginning of the experiment, after 125 hours, that all were depleted. So same what is happening, because that ingredients converted into the inorganic molecules. So same here in the natural, this Haldane theory says the same thing, that whatever energy source was there, all the energy source was converted into the coacervates. Now everything is converted into the coacervate. That means now there is a scarcity of the food. Now whatever coacervates has been found, they are getting, although they are getting the energy from the sun, ultraviolet rays are coming, but they need the food, that natural food. They started making by their own ways. So they started doing the photosynthesis, and this photosynthesis helps in aiding the oxygen into the environment, and that reducing environment converted into the oxidizing environment. Let us discuss about it. So now this oxygen which was released as a it is not it is byproduct of photosynthesis. Ultimately that might have created the ozone layer. Oxygen might have accumulated and oxygen might have reacted with each other and might have formed the O3, and this O3 might, so many molecules, so many photosynthetic organisms, so that might have formed a complete ozone layer in the upper atmosphere. Now this ozone layer will not be allowing the ultraviolet radiation. Now we all have seen that the ultraviolet radiation was the ultimate source which was providing the energy for the formation of the core surface. Now that ultraviolet radiation is not there, so definitely atmosphere will convert from reducing way to the air oxidizing form. So this is the idea, or this is the theory given by the Oparin and Haldane, and this theory was really remarkable in the explanation of the origin of life, which was giving a complete blueprint. So what experiment? Last lecture we all have understand Miller-Urey was given was nothing but this, but the Oparin and Haldane theory means they have taken the base. So what we have learned will revise very quickly. We have learned that in the beginning atmosphere was the reducing type. That means atmosphere is having the hydrogen, water, NH3, then methane, carbon dioxide, everything was there, but there was no oxygen, and oxygen was not there, ozone layer was not there, as ozone was not there. So whatever ultraviolet rays were there, that ultraviolet radiation was reaching to the earth directly, because there was no ozone layer. So this ultraviolet rays was having the high energy. So because of that high energy, all the chemical substance they started reacting with each other, and Haldane gave that particular thing which was mixed into the ocean. So Haldane gave name ocean as a Haldane soup. That means all the things are presented into the ocean in the form of a colloidal solution. But Operon suggests that these particular things, or this particular molecules which are being formed due to the high radiation by the sunlight, that might have a lipid bound membrane, otherwise the molecule might have diluted into the ocean. So for that particular reason, the organic molecule, that means the co-acervates, which is having the lipid bound membrane, that lipid bound membrane was helping molecule to protect, as well as it is allowing to exchange the matter from the surrounding, that means from the ocean. But slowly more and more co-acervates form, that means the more and more reaction has been taken place. Now, when we were learning about Miller and Urey experiment, we have seen that after some times that particular material, that means the hydrogen, methane, ammonia, these things started depleting. So how they will get the food? So because of the scarcity of the natural food, this particular co-acervates, they started photosynthesizing, and because of the photosynthesizing, oxygen released, and so many co-acervates there. So much oxygen was released as a byproduct of the photosynthesis, and all this oxygen, it converted into the ozone molecule, and it formed the ozone layer. Now ozone layer, we all know the property of the ozone layer. This ozone layer has prevented ultraviolet sunrise to reach to the earth, and the atmosphere was converted from the oxidizing to the from the reducing to the oxidizing stage. So this is all about Oparin and Haldane theory, and this, you need to remember that this is a very important and remarkable theory which has given the blueprint for the idea about life, origin of life on the earth.